Hello. We are carrying on today with the third part of our consideration of the changes to the brain, and it's concerned with the cleaning and clearing of the temple area. Interesting name, temple. We'll come to Buddhist monks in a moment, so that's quite interesting. The temple area obviously runs into the temporal lobe just here. Now, the temporal lobe itself contains two structures called the amygdala, to which I'll come in a moment. But the whole area needs cleaning and clearing because it is a site of some residual patterning. It's been found, researchers have been very good on this area, and it's been found to be the place where I would say carefully that the mechanisms for particularly destructive, negative, and potently antisocial behaviour seem to reside, and sexual memory of some descriptions and sexual memory too. Now, I don't want to be too complicated, but for me, the cloud, the field of these negative eruptions and so on is out here somewhere, wherever it is. It isn't within us, but the mechanism, for me, the mechanism which triggers them, holds them, stores them, logs them, whatever, is in our temples, in our temporal lobe. Now, there are two almond-shaped neurons, set of neurons in the temporal lobe here, in there, deep in there, called the amygdala, and amygdalus is, prunus amygdalus, is an almond. So it's quite logical, really. Not that my Latin's very great. Now, these almond-shaped structures are tucked into the temporal lobes at the end of the hippocampus, which is to do with memory, and the hypothalamus, which is to do with the regulation of body functions. Now, the amygdala themselves are interesting because they're part of our dear friend, the limbic system, which we were talking about yesterday. The old reptilian brain back here, fight or flight, run away, la la la, and the limbic system obviously comes round here and it joins nicely and goes into the amygdala. Now, they are to do with processing memory and emotional reactions and memory storage and memory consolidation. They are, interestingly, different in the gender. So the male and the female amygdala are different. Sometimes there has been some research to say that the male amygdala, some people say amygdala, but I'm saying amygdala. The male male amygdala are larger, and the female amygdala come to fruition earlier in puberty. There are also differences between the left and the right amygdala, but I'm not going to go into that today. Now, for me, there are two important areas. The first is that amygdala are to do with fear. And we remember again and again that at this time of frequency shifts, fear is a terrible thing in the body. It creates havoc, and it creates more fear, and it creates more separation, and your body just doesn't like it. Now, the limbic system has been very powerful in the past to sabotage us, and it can still sabotage us, and I am not going to go into that for this moment. Now, what does interest me is that the amygdala are to do with the consolidation of sexual memory, and what with the business of the fear and the antisocial behaviour and the sexual memory, that seems to me, as someone who's worked with people for a lot of time and I work with energy, that these little structures, they're little powerhouses which must translate into the cells. You know, we remember Bruce Lipton in 1995 telling us very powerfully that cells have a big memory. They have a very fine memory, and all the cells know what each is and what each other. They all know what they're doing. If you bang your toe, it doesn't take 20 minutes for your head to know you banged your toe. it's not simply the neural pathways that inform. Each cell has a memory. And remember, and we're just in this wonderful continent of Africa where it's very, very clear that cells are also a collective. They are a collective intelligence, they are a group intelligence, and they are a collective consciousness. They're aware of that each cell is aware of itself, and each cell is aware of each other cell. When we see a magnificent flock of birds, maybe flamingo, all together, it is the most amazing sight. And it isn't just a visual quality. They are working together, they know what they're doing. You know, there's a wonderful little moment with Eddie Izzard when he talks about Steve the bird leading the team. Well, I'm not sure that Steve the bird does lead the team, but something in them, in a flock of birds, brings them to work together. They are a wonderful example of group intelligence and group consciousness. So here we are with all of our cells in our body being intelligent, and we have harrowing memories. Particularly in these times, we have miserable memories, and we have great difficulties that we want to store. Now, the amygdala are to do with this. Now, at this time, many people, thank heavens, many people, myself included, are working on ourselves to get rid of all our rubbish, and it's not an easy task, but it's simpler than the old, please forgive me, Mr. Freud, Dr. Freud, Professor Freud. It's easier than in the time a century ago when Freud was dissecting everything, perhaps, and we had to relive everything in the minutiae. Now we're clearing things much more quickly, and we're doing that because we use our intent and we use focus. Now, in 2008, a group of researchers headed by Antoine Lutz worked for a long time on some Buddhist monks, and they observed the monks in their meditation. And it's quite important for me to mention that, I'm sure a Buddhist monk would agree with me, that he is involved with focus, he is involved with concentration and discipline. Intense meditation and committed, grounded meditation doesn't come necessarily always as a gift. I know it can. But it's also to do with practice, regularity, discipline, and the focus of devotion. And for me, that's a particularly interesting area. Now, Antoine Lutz and his colleagues found that the Buddhist monks could regulate their amygdala, which became more active when they were meditating, and that the whole process of re-education seemed to be going on very happily within these groups of men. So, for me, it's the great light at the end of the tunnel, because Lutz and his team showed that the amygdala undergo intense activity in meditation. And that is a wonderful possibility, a very strong possibility for our cleaning and clearing. And once that cleaning and clearing is done on this wonderful temple area, I'm going to carry on calling it a temple area, we will be able to bring in this wonderful frequency that is very, very fine, very, very fine, very refined. It will give the poor old pineal a great rest. It will be different from the mastoids, which are, you remember we said yesterday, they're bone, but they're not really bone, they're spongy cavities, bone cavities. And the bulk of our frequency will come in from out here, and it will come in to the temple area, which will really light up the possibilities of our thinking for science, for a new science and a new mathematics as well, which we really, really urgently need at this time. So, open the doors, guys. We're waiting.